Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's message from the truck. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Reverend Paul Poulton. I am the rector of St. Augustine of Canterbury Anglican Church in Windsor, Ontario. For those of you who do know me, welcome back. It's great to see you again. I know that it's been a couple of weeks since you received a message from the truck from me, but you did get a sermon from me last week, so we'll call that equal. How's that? But it's great to have everyone back again and to see everyone again, and hopefully you get an opportunity to check out this video and hear a little bit about some information coming up for our congregation, as well as a little bit of a reflection on what it is that we're going to hear from church, at what we might hear, at church tomorrow morning as we gather for our Facebook worship. So that's the first announcement right out of the gate. Tomorrow morning is Facebook worship, 10 o'clock in the morning on Facebook, on St. Augustine of Canterbury's Facebook page. You can find that through the link that will be attached to the email that you will have probably found this video through, but it'll also be found on our Facebook page. So if you just go there at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, or about 5 to 10 on Sunday morning, you should be able to find the video or the live video link, for worship tomorrow morning. So that's 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, Sunday, August the 23rd, on Facebook Live. So the second announcement that I have for the congregation this morning is a special thank you to everyone who has taken part in the survey. That survey was sent out Monday or Tuesday of this week. Actually, it was sent out last Saturday, now that I think about it. And everybody has received a copy of that survey, and I've had about 30 or 35 responses so far. So thank you to everyone who has responded and let their voice be heard as to our plans as we look at reopening and regathering for in-person worship on the 13th of September. Some folks haven't had a chance to do that because either A, they haven't seen the email yet, or B, they don't have email. So thank you to Hazel, who has stepped up and volunteered to make those phone calls for me to anyone who doesn't have email, so that folks aren't getting lost between the cracks. So everyone who is not electronically connected will still have an opportunity to share their voice, as Hazel has made those phone calls for us. So thank you to Hazel for that. You do have a couple more days. I know that I had set a deadline of Thursday, but I'm not going to get my results from Hazel until Sunday, which means I'm not going to put them together until Monday. So as long as you have your electronic version in by Monday at the absolute latest, you should still be okay. So please make sure you do that to get your voice heard. Just a reminder also, a third announcement for you today is just a reminder that we will be doing our drive-through food drive on the Sunday that we regather for in-person worship, so Sunday, September 13th. That will be our in-person worship day, but it'll also be our food drive day. So if you can please make sure that you, when you're out at the grocery store or out at the dollar store or wherever else you might happen to be, grab one of those cleaning supplies that are on that list. Maybe it's some paper towel or some toilet paper or whatever else it happens to be. I think we had one person last month say, "No, I was wondering what I was going to do with all that hoarded toilet paper, and now I know, I'll give it to the college." So it's an opportunity for us to share our benefits, our gracious gifts, and share those generously with the people that are coming into Canterbury College for school in the fall. I wanted to share a little bit of a story of what happened for me this week. This week I was making my way to work on Thursday morning. I had a load of garbage in the back of the other pickup truck, and I was making my way over to dump that out so that we could carry on and get some more work done this coming weekend. And as I made my way around the bend to pop up and drop all of the waste materials off from the house, lo and behold, the power steering pump all of a sudden blew power steering fluid all over the place. Definitely not inside the power steering system where it was supposed to be, which meant that there was no longer any power steering. And if you've ever experienced that, you know that you can still drive the vehicle, but it's a bit of a surprise when it takes place. I wasn't expecting all of a sudden that I was going to have to work harder to do something that I was already doing. You drive around, you turn your steering wheel, you do go from one place to another, and you just assume that everything's going to work the way that it always has. And then lo and behold, something changes. Jesus and his disciples this week are wandering and teaching, and Jesus is doing his parable teaching and his healings, as we've heard throughout the Gospel of Matthew through these last couple of months. And in the midst of all of that, Jesus turns to Peter and says, So far, you've just been sort of following me around. You've been listening to the stories, you've been questioning and asking questions when questions are necessary. But now I've got a different project for you. Surprise. I'm going to build my church on you. Peter, you are the rock. And on you, I will build my church. So what was sort of power steering life for Peter, just following along, doing his thing, all of a sudden Jesus says, I've got something important for you to do. And this isn't just about following me around anymore. This is about taking on some responsibility. And then he carries on beyond the idea that he's going to build his church. Jesus turns to Peter and says, and I'm going to give you the keys to heaven. And whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. And there's some heavy responsibility. Again, sort of one of those, but I was just trucking along here doing my thing, and all of a sudden now you're changing the rules. How many times does that happen to all of us? Right? How many times in our life, and I'm not going to even talk about the changes that have happened because of COVID, but I'm just going to talk about things like all of a sudden you have a family responsibility. All of a sudden you have a loved one who needs to be cared for. All of a sudden you have a neighbor who's in need of some assistance. And what was pretty easy just sitting in the lawn chair watching the world go by, all of a sudden becomes a responsibility. And we can take that responsibility and say, nope, too much, not going to do it, not interested. Or we can turn to God and say, I know that if you've given me a responsibility, you'll give me the tools I need to be able to do it. So I'm going to take that job, and I'm going to do it because you've asked me to. That's very different. Keep in mind, this is very different than the idea that God will never give you more than you can handle. Sometimes God gives you more than you can handle. But God also gives you the tools to work through that. God gives you the keys to be able to open the gates of heaven. God gives you those necessary bits of foundation that you need to be the rock on whom the church is built. So I want us to consider that this week and, use my power steering as an example. It got home and it got fixed, and the power steering is working just the way it should because we had the right tools and we had the right parts and we had the right knowledge to be able to put it back together. And in a similar way, God calls us and says, I'm going to give you the tools. I'm going to give you the parts. I'm going to give you the knowledge to hold your life together when I ask you to do something that's a little different than it ever was before. Just like he does with Peter this week in the gospel. So I'm going to leave it at that for now and let you figure out what that means in your world. When has God called you and said, I've got something different for you to do, or I've got a different set of rules than what you're familiar with? Because sometimes that's just the way our relationship with God works. But for right now, I certainly look forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning at worship as we gather on Facebook Live at 10 o'clock in the morning. For those of you who aren't Facebook people and are more YouTube people, that service should be up and running on our YouTube channel by noon. So please watch for an email tomorrow morning just with the link to the YouTube link that will get you onto that get you onto the video for worship for tomorrow morning. So tomorrow we will be coming to you from the studio at St. James Church in Roseland. And Jonathan will be there, and Chris will be there, and all of those necessary people will be there to offer our prayer and praise, the same as we've been doing, and the same that has been holding us together throughout all of these changes that God put in front of us. For right now, keep the shiny side up, keep the rubber side down. Blessings to you all. This week's message from the truck. Have a great week. See you Sunday morning. Bye for now.